Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this side event on national and regional counterterrorism strategies, insights and practical lessons learned, including through strengthening prevention and PCVE. It's my pleasure to moderate today's morning session, which brings together representatives of member states, United Nations bodies, and regional organizations to exchange practical experiences in developing and implementing comprehensive, integrated, and human rights compliant counterterrorism and PCVE strategies. This event provides a valuable opportunity to share lessons learned, highlight effective partnerships, and identify good practices that can support member states in strengthening their national and regional approaches in line with the United Nations Global Counterterrorism Strategy, as well as the relevant Security Council resolutions. I would now like to invite our distinguished speakers to deliver their opening remark, starting with His Excellency, Mr. Vipa, IGF, Permanent Representative of Turkmenistan. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, Turkmenistan is honored to co-organize this important side event dedicated to national and regional counterterrorism strategies and the practical lessons learned in strengthening prevention and preventing and countering violent extremism conducive to terrorism. We would like to express our appreciation to other co-organizers, the Permanent Mission of Finland, the Council of Europe, the OSCE, CTED, and UNOCT for bringing together national, regional, and international perspectives, one of the most pressing security challenges of our time. For Turkmenistan, preventing terrorism and violent extremism remains a strategic national priority closely linked to our policy of permanent neutrality, preventive diplomacy, and regional cooperation. We firmly believe that sustainable security cannot be achieved through reactive measures alone. It requires early prevention, resilience building, and addressing conditions conducive to radicalization and violent extremism. In this regard, Turkmenistan continues to implement its national strategy and action plan on countering terrorism, which places particular emphasis on prevention, community resilience, border security, protection of critical infrastructure, and strengthening institutional capacities. National ownership and the whole of government approach remain the guiding principles of our efforts. In Turkmenistan, local authorities play an important role in preventing terrorism and violent extremism through community outreach, early identification of vulnerabilities, and support for social resilience at the local level. The assessment visit conducted by CTED to Turkmenistan in December 2024 represented an important milestone in evaluating our progress and identifying opportunities for further strengthening our national framework. We highly value CTED's practical recommendations and its approach based on partnership, dialogue, and respect for national priorities. At the regional level, Central Asia has developed one of the most advanced cooperative frameworks for implementing the United Nations Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy. The updated Joint Plan of Action for the implementation of the global strategy in Central Asia, adopted in 2022, continues to provide an effective platform for collective responses to evolving threats and emerging challenges. Within this framework, Turkmenistan considered the counterterrorism early warning network for Central Asia as one of the region's most significant achievements. Established in cooperation with the UNOCT and United Nations Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy for Central Asia, the network brings together national focal points, UN entities, research institutions, and experts to strengthen information sharing, strategic foresight, and coordinated responses to potential threats. For our region, early warning is not simply a technical exercise. It's a practical extension of preventive diplomacy and one of the most effective instruments for preventing crises before they emerge. Timely identification of risks allows governments and international partners to act proactively, reducing vulnerabilities and strengthening resilience against terrorism and violent extremism. The experience of Central Asia demonstrates that investments in prevention are considerably more effective and less costly than responding to crises after they occur. This conviction is reflected in Turkmenistan's voluntary contributions to United Nations counter-terrorism activities, including support for regional early warning initiatives and preventive programs. At the same time, we believe that the successful experience of Central Asia offers valuable lessons beyond our region. Existing regional early warning mechanisms should increasingly cooperate, exchange expertise, and share best practices, contributing to the creation of a more coherent global preventive architecture under United Nations leadership. Turkmenistan also attaches particular importance to the work of the United Nations Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy for Central Asia in Ashgabat, which for almost 2 decades has demonstrated the effectiveness of dialogue, confidence building, and preventive engagement in strengthening regional security and stability. As terrorist threats continue to evolve and become increasingly transnational, our response must also become more preventive, more cooperative, and more forward-looking. Turkmenistan remains firmly committed to working with the United Nations, CTED, UNOCT, OSCE, and all interested partners to strengthen prevention, advance early warning capacities, to promote comprehensive approach to preventing violent extremism and terrorism. We remain convinced that sustainable security is built not in moments of crisis, but through continuous dialogue, mutual trust, and timely preventive action. I thank you.
For his opening remarks, and give the floor now kindly to Mr. Alexandra Zuev, Acting Under Secretary General of the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellency, Mr. Vepa Hajiyev, Permanent Representative of Turkmenistan to the United Nations. Your Excellency, Executive Director of CTED, Madam Natalia Gherman. Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished colleagues. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to this side event, which brings together a wide range of perspectives to reflect on national and regional counterterrorism strategies, and critically how to translate them into a meaningful and sustainable action. First of all, I would like to join Ambassador Hajiyev and begin my statement by expressing UNOCT's appreciation to all co-organizers, specifically Permanent Missions of Finland and Turkmenistan, to the United Nations, the Council of Europe, the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, the Counter-Terrorism Committee Executive Directorate, which I already mentioned, CTED, and the United Nations Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy for Central Asia, UNRCCA, which was already mentioned by Ambassador Hajiyev. We know that it's based in Ashgabat, but covers the whole of Central Asia. This partnership reflects the multilateral, multi-level cooperation that underpins effective counter-terrorism efforts. In this regard, I would like to especially highlight, not because I'm sitting next to the Executive Director, long-standing and excellent cooperation between UNOCT and CTED on national but also on regional counter-terrorism strategies. Since 2012, we have jointly delivered support through the UN Counter-Terrorism Center for the development of regional strategy and action plans in Central Asia, also in the Caribbean, Southern Africa, and Western Central Africa. This work is further strengthened through the UN Global Counter-Terrorism Coordination Compact, where CTED is chair, and my office, UNOCT, is vice chair of the National and Regional Counter-Terrorism Strategies, or NARS, working group. The working group has served as a platform for mobilizing expertise from across the United Nations system in advising member states. Of course, the blueprint at heart of these efforts is the United Nations Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy, which we hope will be approved in 2 days from now by member states in its new 9th edition already. Of course, the blueprint of this also stays in the Secretary General guidance, and you've heard this morning how the Secretary General Guterres addressed all delegations attending our high-level CT week, and I thank it on your behalf. I thanked him. I mean, you know, I believe it was important to have him in person for our exercise. Complementing the strategy, the Bogota principles of 2013, updated through the Valletta principles of 2025, reinforce the importance of moving beyond traditional security responses to encompass prevention, including by addressing the conditions conducive to terrorism. Our experience in Central Asia illustrates how global frameworks can be translated into practical action at the regional and country-specific level. In partnership with UNRCCA, UNOCT supported the development of the Joint Plan of Action for the implementation of the Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy in Central Asia, which was endorsed in 2011, but later on updated in 2022. Building on this milestone, UNOCT has supported the formulation of the national strategies of Turkmenistan and Tajikistan, and is currently supporting Uzbekistan. I just met a high-level delegation from Uzbekistan in my office for bilateral, and we discussed this issue. They definitely appreciate very much all support which they get from the UN system, and especially from UNRCCA colleagues. In the preparation of its next strategy. Against this backdrop, the focus of today's event is on how to move from strategy into effective implementation. Allow me to highlight only 3 key considerations. First of all, national ownership. Durable progress depends on strategies that are legislated, resourced domestically, and led by national institutions. International support is most effective when it strengthens and does not substitute for these national commitments and efforts. Secondly, we need inclusive and coordinated approaches, whole of government and whole of society engagement, including youth organizations, civil society, human rights organizations, and all different academia, of course, remain essential, requiring clear coordination mechanism, defined roles, resources, and also accountability. Third and last, adaptability. The evolving threat landscape, including the use of new and emerging technology, requires strategies that are flexible and forward-looking. I hope that today's exchange will provide additional practical insights and will summarize lessons learned that can reinforce our collective efforts in supporting member states who have the primary responsibility, as you remember, for the implementation of the Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy of the United Nations. Thank you very much for your attention. Back to you.
Thank Mr. Alexander Zoev, Acting Under-Secretary General of the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism, for his opening remarks. And I hand the floor now kindly to Ms. Natalia Gherman, Assistant Secretary General and Executive Director of the Counter-Terrorism Committee, Executive Directorate. You have the floor. Yes,
Thank you very much, dear Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would very much like to greet all of you on behalf of the Counter-Terrorism Committee Executive Directorate, and thank in particular our dear co-organizers, Turkmenistan, Your Excellency Permanent Representative Vipasek Sengildevich Hadjiyev, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Finland, our dear co-organizer, Your Excellency, United Nations Office of Counter-Terrorism Acting Under-Secretary General, Mr. Alexander Zuev, my dear colleagues from the Council of Europe, Gianluca Esposito, head of the Human Rights Unit, and also Feizo, representing the Transnational Threats Department of the OSCE. And I cannot but mention my dear colleagues from United Nations Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy for Central Asia, the team that I was so privileged to lead for more than 5 years in the region. Thank you very much to all of you. I also see my dear colleagues, Manucher, the Deputy Prosecutor from Tajikistan, with whom we share a lot of fond memories of working on the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy of Tajikistan for its several iterations. Colleagues, pleasure to welcome you to this important discussion on national and regional counter-terrorism strategies and the practical lessons we continue to learn from their development and implementation. And at a time when the global threat landscape is becoming increasingly complex, one lesson has emerged clearly from CTED's work on behalf of the Counter-Terrorist Committee. There is no sustainable counter-terrorism response without a strategy, as clear as that. Terrorist groups continue to adapt. They exploit instability, technological change, online spaces, and local grievances. And in response, our efforts cannot be fragmented or reactive. Effective counterterrorism requires a clear vision, shared priorities, and coordinated action across governmental institutions and society as a whole. This is precisely why comprehensive national and regional counterterrorism strategies matter. When designed inclusively and implemented effectively, they provide far more than a policy framework, informed by relevant Security Council resolutions and the non-binding Valletta principles now on national and regional counterterrorism strategies. They can become mechanisms that bring together security institutions, local authorities, civil society, women, youth, and communities around a common objective: protecting people while upholding human rights, the rule of law, and the values that terrorism seeks to undermine. Over the years, CTED has had the privilege of visiting member states across every region of the world. Through our assessment visits and sustained dialogue with national authorities, we have witnessed remarkable progresses. An increasing number of states are embracing integrated approaches that recognize prevention, resilience, and human rights as indispensable pillars of effective and sustainable counterterrorism. And I'm particularly pleased to see many of these states represented here today, of course including our co-organizers Turkmenistan and Finland. Together with other member states and regional organizations, they bring experiences that are invaluable to us. These lessons reaffirm an important truth: developing a strategy is only the beginning. The real challenge and opportunity lies in translating strategy into sustainable implementation, fostering inclusive partnerships, delivering measurable impact, and continuously adapting to evolving threats. No country has all the answers, which is precisely why exchanges such as today's are so important. In this regard, I would like also to recognize again the contributions of our partners across the United Nations system, including UNOCT and UNRCCA, as well as our close regional partners, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and the Council of Europe, whom I sincerely thank for preparing, co-sponsoring, and conducting together this side event. Ultimately, our goal is not only to produce better strategies, it is to build more resilient societies, strengthen trust between institutions and communities, and prevent terrorism and violent extremism before they take root. I thank our co-organizers and all the distinguished speakers, and I look forward to a rich and productive discussions. Thank you.
CTED Executive Director, for her opening remarks, and I give the floor now to Mr. Gianluca Esposito, Director General of Human Rights and Rule of Law at the Council of Europe. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear partners, good afternoon and welcome to this side event as well from our side. Allow me to start, as the previous speakers, by warmly thanking our co-organizers here, of course, Turkmenistan and Finland, but also our UN friends from the UN Office on Counterterrorism and CTED, and of course the OSCE. Let me be very brief, time is short, making 5 main points that we have learned from our decades-long work in the area of counterterrorism. And the first one is that to successfully counter terrorism, we need a wider engagement with and from society as a whole, one that builds societal individual resilience to radicalization and to violence. This engagement must be rooted in the core democratic values, in human rights, and in the rule of law. The second lesson that we've learned is that in countering terrorism and violent extremism effectively, enforcement action alone is not enough. It must be complemented with education, disengagement, and assistance to victims. The third lesson that we've learned is that a detailed knowledge of terrorism and violent extremism context and development is actually key. For example, this has helped us in shaping standards that address the increased involvement of violent far-right in terrorism, the principle of disengagement and social reintegration programs for women and children, and more recently, the work that led the Council of Europe to develop the first pan-European definition of terrorism. Increased involvement of youth in terrorism and violent extremism across Europe will certainly impact the formulation of our own counterterrorism strategy. The fourth lesson that we've learned is that we need strategies to adapt to rapidly evolving needs. And to achieve that, at the Council of Europe, our strategies are time-capped, and contain mandatory periodic reviews of progress, and they are able also to adjust to evolving priorities and evolving needs. My fifth and last point is one that relates to the work of our member states, our 46 member states in the Council of Europe. We work with them very closely, especially with practitioners who have hands-on knowledge of the day-to-day challenges of dealing with terrorism. And this approach has ensured all of us to make informed decisions, but also take into account different perspectives that we have across our member states. We remain committed to work with not only our member states, but also with our partners to support prevention and enforcement actions against terrorism. And I want to thank you again for the invitation. Thanks a lot.
Esposito for his opening remark. I understand you have a plane to catch in New York, so I wish you safe travels. Thank you very much. And thank also the Council of Europe, of course, for their cooperation together with OSCE and other partners. I now give the floor to Mr. Fizio Numanash, Officer in Charge of Deputy Head of Anti-Terrorism Issues, Action Against Terrorism Unit of OSCE. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellencies, distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to join the other esteemed speakers in welcoming you to this joint side event co-organized with our partners from Turkmenistan, Finland, the UN Counter-Terrorism Executive Directorate Committee, CTED, the UN Office of Counter-Terrorism, UNOCT, and the Council of Europe, through which we wish to underline the important role of international organizations in turning global commitments into practical impact on the ground. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe serves its 57 participating states and 11 partners for cooperation through political dialogue and trust building. We are mandated to support the participating states in aligning their national counterterrorism strategies with global counterterrorism frameworks and OSCE commitments by ensuring that human rights and security remain mutually reinforcing. As it has been stated, the threat landscape is evolving rapidly, with the misuse of technologies for terrorist purposes being a dominant feature, and which will continue to be so in the years to come. It is for that reason that one of the core priorities of the current OSCE chairpersonship, Switzerland, is about anticipating technologies for a safe and humane future. As of 2026, the OSCE has supported all Central Asian participating states, as well as key jurisdictions in Southeastern Europe, in developing their counterterrorism strategies and in the design of learning programs emanating from these strategies on a range of thematic areas in order to bridge the gap between policy and practice. Upon the requests of the republics of Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, we have recently provided legal analysis, advice, and feedback on their draft counterterrorism strategies. We are working together with our government partners and civil society in Central Asia on media and information literacy trainings and on the responsible and ethical use of artificial intelligence, work that only continues to grow in importance in Central Asia and beyond. One of the main lessons we have learned throughout the support process to the participating states in the design of their national counterterrorism strategies is that for evolving threats to be addressed comprehensively and effectively, counterterrorism strategies must uphold human rights and remain inclusive through broad and meaningful consultations with civil society, and now including more and more with the private sector. And this only reflects the global counterterrorism commitments and other non-binding principles, such as the recently adopted Valletta principles. Besides our strategic cooperation with government institutions and civil society, I would be remiss not to mention another cornerstone of our work, which is our collaboration with international partners. Beyond sharing good practices, we regularly combine expertise in the field, such as through the joint country assessment visits of CTED. These visits are an important instrument to help identify how national frameworks align with international standards and, moreover, where further support is needed. Under the leadership of UNOCT, we cooperate with our Central Asian partners on the rehabilitation and reintegration of returnees in the framework of the Regional Expert Council, which is now a homegrown initiative in Central Asia. We also work with the governments in the region to enhance the operational capacities of frontline border officers to prevent and respond to cross-border security threats, including the movement of foreign terrorist fighters. The OSCE and the Council of Europe continue their successful cooperation in a number of work streams, complementing each other's standing bodies and initiatives. This is visible in the annual high-level exchanges we have, either in Vienna or in Strasbourg, and in the work of the Council of Europe's Committee on Counterterrorism and the Committee of Experts on the Evaluation of Anti-Money Laundering, MONEYVAL, to both of which the OSCE contributes in an observer capacity. I would like to once again thank all our participating states for their trust and cooperation, as well as our excellent partners, CTED, UNOCT, and the Council of Europe, and looking forward to engaging discussions today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Fizo Nomada from OSCE for his partnership and for his opening remarks. Thank you to our distinguished speakers for setting the scene. We now turn to the second session, where we will hear directly from member states that have worked closely with the Counterterrorism Committee Executive Directorate and other UN partners in the development, implementation, or review of their national counterterrorism strategy and PCVE strategies. These presentations will offer practical insights into national experiences, including successes, challenges, and lessons learned in translating strategic objectives into effective policies and coordinated action. They will also illustrate the value of international cooperation and peer learning in strengthening comprehensive and integrated counterterrorism framework. I kindly invite each speaker to limit their intervention to approximately 2 to 3 minutes so that we can hear from all participating delegations. And as you all know, we will be putting these presentations online on the website designated for the side event. And last point to mention to other member states present, we have changed the seating to mere reserve, so please, for other member states sitting in the back, please feel free to sit at the table if you so wish. With that, I would like to give the floor to our co-organizer, Finland, Ms. Tarja Mankinen, Head of Department Police Department, Ministry of Interior from the Republic of Finland. It's great to see you.
Chair. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Finland has been carrying out consistent and systematic work to prevent and counter violent extremism and terrorism since the early 2010. Over the years, the government has adopted the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy, and the National Action Plan for the Prevention of Violent Radicalization and Extremism on 4 occasions. The Counter-Terrorism Committee Executive Directorate, CTED, has conducted visits to Finland on behalf of the UN Secretary Council's Counter-Terrorism Committee to monitor, facilitate and promote the implementation of relevant Security Council resolutions. The initial assessment visit took place in 2012, followed by a follow-up visit in 2019. We found this evaluation process and the recommendations extremely valuable, and we published the report and the recommendations online. At the same time, we have adapted our approach to reflect the significant changes in terrorism and extremism that have emerged during 2020s. Currently, we are moving towards post-ideological era and individualized forms of action where loosely connected networks and activity in the digital environment have become central. Ideological motivations are not longer clear-cut, they have hybridized, and boundaries between the ideologies have become increasingly blurred. One of the most serious challenges we face today is the growing radicalization of minors and their involvement in terrorist activities. Especially among minors, ideology is not necessarily part of radicalization. Poor fascination into violence might suffice as a reason to resort to terrorism. These developments demand up-to-date knowledge, new approaches, new practices, and a renewed commitment to prevention. In its assessment, CTED praised Finland's model for preventing extremism, which is grounded in a whole-of-society approach and close collaboration between authorities on national, regional, and local level, civil society organizations, and researchers. In Finland, these partners collaborate through the National Collaboration Network set by the Ministry of the Interior. This collaborative approach significantly strengthens and enhances our collective efforts to counter extremism and terrorism. We are currently in a process of developing a new comprehensive national strategy that will bring together the currently separated counterterrorism and PCVE frameworks into a single unified strategy. This new comprehensive strategy will also implement CTED's recommendation to extend the whole-of-society approach more fully to counter-terrorism efforts. All our efforts must be based on knowledge. Therefore, the Center of Excellence on Preventing Violent Radicalization and Extremism, called RADIA, was established at the University of Helsinki. This center supports both authorities and other organizations, including NGOs, by providing training and research-based knowledge. RADIA is also responsible for evaluating the current National Action Plan for the Prevention of Radicalization and Extremism adopted in 2024. First evaluation was conducted in 2019, which was also referred in CTED's report on Finland. Radicalization is increasingly taking place online. As a response to online challenges, we developed the Online Gaming Police initiative. Through this project, the police engage with young people and gaming communities at regularly organized gaming events where police officers wearing their uniforms play online games together with the young people, providing also opportunities to talk privately with the police on issues of concern. And, when necessary, individuals can be referred to support services such as the multidisciplinary anchor teams, which were recognized in the CTED's report. By this approach, the police reach groups that can be difficult to reach through traditional means and who may have limited trust into society. To conclude, our work is grounded in close cooperation among all relevant actors, an evidence-based approach, active participation in international cooperation, a strong commitment to human rights and the rule of law, and the effective enforcement of criminal accountability. Thank you.
Presentation. I would like also to commend Finland for being the only country so far who made the report public, and as our ASG Gherman has been recommending to all other member states to follow pursue. So thank you very much for the great cooperation, being so transparent. Thank you. With that, I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, General Manshouer Mahmoud Zouda, Head of the Unified Information Center, Office of the Prosecutor General from the Republic of Tajikistan. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a presentation, but it's not ready probably. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to me to present here today alongside our partners at the UNOCT, the OSCE, and the Council of Europe. I will share Tajikistan national experience in developing and implementing counter-terrorism strategies, a decade-long journey that we believe holds lessons relevant to the broader international community. Tajikistan's counter-terrorism approach is built on a comprehensive, multi-pillar strategic framework. Since 2016, we have adopted more than 5 major strategic documents. These include the National Strategy for 2016-20, 21-25, and our newly adopted strategy for 2026-2040, which I will describe in some details today. In addition, since 2023, we have put in place 3 specialized rehabilitation and reintegration programs covering women and children returning from conflict zones, persons with extremist or terrorist backgrounds, and convicted offenders. This is not a single agency approach. It's a whole of government, whole of society framework that engages law enforcement, the judiciary, civil society, religious institutions, the education sector, and international partners in a coordinated and accountable manner. The strategy for 2026-40 is structured around 13 priority areas. And I want to draw your attention to the breadth of this framework. These areas include early prevention, education and youth engagement, human rights compliance, the role of religious organizations, the challenges on the internet and artificial intelligence, countering the financing of terrorism, the specific vulnerabilities associated with the labor migration, conditions and programming within correctional facilities, gender mainstreaming, repatriation, rehabilitation and reintegration, international cooperation, and legislative development. What I would particularly highlight is the inclusion of Internet and AI as a dedicated priority. Tajikistan recognizes that the digital environment is now a primary vector for radicalization and recruitment, and our new strategy addresses this directly with both regulatory and preventive tools. This strategy is supported by a concrete action plan for 2026 to 2030, built on 3 pillars: coordination, structure, and innovation. The General Prosecutor Office is a designed monitoring body conducting annual reviews. All ministries and agencies are required to submit progress reports by the 15th of January each year, ensuring accountability across the government. Tajikistan's contribution to international counter-terrorism cooperation extends well beyond our borders. Dushanbe has been chosen repeatedly as a venue for high-level multilateral counter-terrorism events. This is not coincidental. It reflects the trust placed in Tajikistan as a senior and constructive partner on these issues that has emerged from this now recognized internationally as the Dushanbe process, a platform for multilateral dialogue and cooperation on counter-terrorism, particularly relevant to Central Asia and its neighborhood. Just in the last 10 years, we have conducted bilateral agreements with more than 15 countries. Our institutional partnerships span UNOCT, the OSCE, the Council of Europe, EU, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, the International Organization for Migration, and much more. This network of cooperation is not ceremonial. It's produced shared intelligence, joint training, coordinated repatriation efforts, and mutual legal assistance. In this stage, I would like to highlight that on June 25, 2026, just a few days before this City Week, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the resolution proclaiming 2027 2023-36 as the International Decade for Strengthening Peace for Future Generations, as initiative proposed by the President of the Republic of Tajikistan, His Excellency Emomali Rahmon. Next year, on the eve of the 13th anniversary of the National Unity Day of Tajikistan, we, in cooperation with the United Nations and partner states, intend to hold a high-level international conference to launch the implementation of the International Decade of Strengthening of Peace for Future Generations in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. At the same time, I would like to inform you that the next high-level conference within the framework of the Dushanbe process on countering terrorism and its financing is also planned to be held in Dushanbe next year. In this stage, I would like to highlight the critical role that the United Nations system has played in supporting Tajikistan's national counter-terrorism strategy development. The recently adopted national strategy for 2025-40 was developed in close consultation with UNOCT, the UN Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy for Central Asia, CTED, UNDP, OSCE, UNODC, and the broader NARS working group. This was a genuinely coordinated UN system approach, and I'm pleased to say that Tajikistan accepted 90% of all comments and recommendations submitted through this process. This did not happen by chance. It reflects the CTED assessment visit, during which CTED, acting on behalf of the Counter-Terrorism Committee, recommended that Tajikistan develop a comprehensive and integrated national CT strategy in line with relevant Security Council resolutions. CTED held direct discussion with our national authorities on the formulation of such a strategy. An important structural point for this audience, CTED serves as the chair of UN Global Counter-Terrorism Coordination Compact Working Group on National and Regional CT Strategies, the NARS Working Group with UNOCT serving as a vice chair. In this capacity, CTED consolidates inputs from all relevant UN entities and regional organizations, providing member states with a single entry point for UN system-wide guidance. This ensures a coherent, non-duplicative approach, and Tajikistan has directly benefited from this mechanism. Completely the same mechanism was done with the Office of OSCE in Dushanbe. We have also ensured robust monitoring and regular reporting, which have been central to effective implementation. Finally, I want to note Tajikistan continued active engagement with the UNOCT. Most recently, we participated in the Regional Expert Council meeting, reflects our commitment not only to the national implementation, but to regional coordination and peer learning. Distinguished colleagues, we are ready and willing to share our experience with any member states that may benefit from it. We remain open to deepen cooperation with all partners represented here today. Thank you.
Remarks and his kind words. May I kindly ask next speakers to limit their presentation for 2 minutes. We have whole of government approach, whole of society approach, and a whole of presenters approach. So in order for us all to be able to speak. So with that, I will give the floor, it's a pleasure, to Dr. Sheila George-Bozovic, Minister Counselor from the Permanent Mission of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the floor and for the opportunity to share some highlights from our experience in support of continued efforts to strengthen holistic integrated approaches to counterterrorism worldwide. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, Bosnia and Herzegovina addresses terrorism through a decentralized whole-of-government and whole-of-society approach that reflects its complex constitutional structure and evolving security environment. Since 2006, BNH has adopted successive national counterterrorism strategies that have progressively strengthened institutional coordination, prevention, international cooperation, and resilience against emerging terrorist threats, and is fully aligned with the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions, European Union standards, OSCE commitments, and Council of Europe instruments. Bosnia and Herzegovina's counterterrorism framework, together with the current strategy for 2021-2026, provides a comprehensive national framework that addresses contemporary challenges while fully respecting human rights, the rule of law, and the principles of non-discrimination, and is built on following mutually reinforcing strategic priorities. prevention, protection, pursuit, rehabilitation and reintegration, response and recovery, and international cooperation. The strategy demonstrates strong national ownership and commitment to addressing terrorism in a comprehensive, coordinated, and human rights compliant manner. It is fully consistent with the non-binding Valletta principles and national and regional counterterrorism strategies, adopting a multidisciplinary, evidentiary-based, and risk-informed approach that balances security imperatives with the protection of fundamental rights. Particularly noteworthy is the strategy's recognition that effective counterterrorism is ultimately about people. By focusing on social cohesion, gender-responsive approaches, rehabilitation, and reintegration, the importance of protecting vulnerable groups, including women, children, and victims of terrorism, it acknowledges that sustainable security can only be achieved when communities are resilient, inclusive, and empowered. Importantly, the strategy reflects many of the recommendations consistently highlighted during Counterterrorism Committee Executive Director visits. It promotes stronger interagency coordination, enhanced information sharing, improved border management measures to prevent the misuse of the internet for terrorist purposes. At the same time, it places prevention at the center of national efforts by investing in education, community resilience, social services, local partnerships, and early intervention mechanisms. Our experience demonstrates that sustainable security depends on far more than law enforcement measures alone. Its strategic multi-agency approach offers several important lessons for the international community. For the sake of time, I will just focus on few. Strong legal framework must be implemented by rehabilitation and reintegration. Bosnia and Herzegovina was amongst the first European countries to criminalize participation in foreign conflicts and successfully prosecute returning foreign terrorist fighters, establishing an important legal precedent. Experience, however, has shown that prosecution alone is insufficient. Long-term security requires multidisciplinary, gender-responsive rehabilitation and reintegration progress that addresses trauma, reduces recidivism, and supports social cohesion, particularly for women and children returning from conflict zones. Terrorism is increasingly transnational and requires sustained international cooperation. And we here wish to especially emphasize the cooperation that we have with the United Nations, European Union, OSCE, NATO, and neighboring countries that has strengthened BNH's capacity to disrupt terrorist networks, prevent the movement of foreign terrorist fighters, and align national policies with international standards. Lessons we have learned, and we will share the full statement with you, continue to shape Bosnia and Herzegovina's efforts to address both domestic and transnational terrorist threats. Its experiences demonstrate that sustainable counterterrorism requires coordinated institutions, resilient communities, effective prevention, robust rehabilitation and reintegration mechanisms, strong counterterrorism financing measures, and gender-responsive policies, as well as strong and close international cooperation. Thank you.
And I give now the floor to Ms. Jana Srkovic, Director General of the Ministry of Interior of Montenegro. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, distinguished Chair. Distinguished Chair, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for me to address you today on this occasion and use this opportunity to present national strategies in the area of counterterrorism and share some insights I deem valuable that Montenegro has undertaken in combating global challenges like this one. In Montenegro, we have two key strategic documents in this area: Strategy for Prevention, Radicalization and Violent Extremism, and Strategy for Prevention and Suppression of Terrorism, Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing, which is in line with the Council of Europe's Moneyval recommendations. However, harmonization with international standards is not the only reason behind such practice. We have assessed that awareness about unwanted foreign funding is mainly raised through the broad framework for preventing money laundering and terrorist financing, and that besides legislative improvements, further strengthening is needed through indicators for spotting suspicious clients and transactions. In that regard, at the beginning of this year, a new law on the prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing was enacted, enhancing transparency and establishing stricter and more precise regulatory framework, not only because financing is one of the key issues whose proper treatment is absolutely necessary, but also due to evolving nature and emerging trends in radicalism and violent extremism. It was necessary for us to separate these thematic areas in order to improve the effectiveness in combating these threats. I believe now it's a good time to introduce you more closely to the work of our multi-agency national operational team for the prevention and suppression of terrorism and national extremism, which represents a key mechanism for an effective response to contemporary multi-sectoral approach the contemporary threats and enables coordinated actions by all relevant institutions. In addition to fostering a multi-sectoral approach, the National Operational Team reports on the implementation of measures under the Joint Action Plan for Counter-Terrorism and in the Western Balkans and monitors the implementation of both strategies. It is also responsible for final outcomes aimed at the early identification of and intervention in cases involving minors, as well as the identification and assessment of the risk posed by suspicious movements of potential foreign terrorist fighters. Additionally, our approach clearly reflects a commitment to whole-of-society inclusions, which is why representatives of civil society, more specifically non-governmental organizations, are involved in implementation of strategic priorities, also through consultation within working bodies established for the purpose of developing policies in these areas. They also actively work on identifying challenges and provide recommendations with the aim of improving preventive and coordination mechanisms. Unlimitedly, I would like to underline that we must not overlook the fact that the security environment is changing rapidly and that terrorism and violent extremism are taking on new forms. For this reason, Montenegro has adopted a strategy for preventing radicalization and violent extremism for the period 2025-2030. Through this strategy, we will continue to integrate the preventive, protective, operational and repressive aspects of the state's response in line with international standards and the practice of the European Union. Thank you.
Montenegro, and I'll give now the floor to Ms. Alicia Carbon from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Malta. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, to start with, I would like to underline the need to confront terrorism through a comprehensive approach that combines both prevention and deterrence remains of paramount importance. In an increasingly intrinsic and rapidly changing threat landscape, it has become essential for states to develop a whole-of-government and whole-of-society approach to counterterrorism. As terrorist groups continuously adapt their methods, exploit emerging technologies, and seek new avenues for recruitment and financing, member states must likewise ensure that their responses evolve accordingly. In this context, a well-developed and integrated national counter-terrorism strategy represents a vital tool for states seeking to address terrorism in a coordinated, comprehensive, and sustainable manner. This understanding was further reinforced during Malta's 2025 follow-up assessment visit by CTED. During discussions with CTED, the value of a comprehensive and integrated approach to counterterrorism and encouraged a reflection on how existing national structures could be brought together with a common strategic framework. Importantly, the discussions demonstrated that many of the institutional components necessary to support such an approach already exist, The challenge is often not the creation of new institutions, but ensuring that existing structures operate in a coordinated and coherent manner under a strategic vision. As a strong advocate for comprehensive approaches to counterterrorism, Malta hosted the United Nations Conference on National and Regional Counter-Terrorism Strategies in March 2025. The conference was jointly co-organized with CTED, including in its capacity as the chair of the Global Counterterrorism Coordination Compact Working Group on National and Regional Counterterrorism Strategies. The conference brought together representatives from member states, international and regional organizations, United Nations entities, civil societies, and academia to exchange experience and identify good practices in the development and implementation of counterterrorism strategies. One of the most significant outcomes was the development of the non-binding Valletta Principles on national and regional counterterrorism strategies. The Valletta Principles are intended to serve as a practical guidance for member states, regional organizations, and other relevant stakeholders seeking to develop comprehensive and integrated counterterrorism strategies grounded in the whole of government and whole of society approaches. They provide both substantive and procedural guidance, drawing upon international experience, lessons learned, and recognize good practices from across the globe. At our request, the Valletta Principles were subsequently issued as both a General Assembly and a Security Council document. In so doing, the valuable insights and recommendations generated through the conference were made available to the wider international community. The principles reflected the collective expertise and experiences shared by member states, the international and regional organizations, UN entities, civil society representatives, and academic experts. Malta hopes that the Valletta Principle will serve as a useful resource for interested member states and regional organizations in their efforts to address the scourge of terrorism. By supporting the development of comprehensive and integrated strategies, the principles can contribute to stronger, resilient societies, more effective preventive capacities, and enhanced coordination amongst institutions and stakeholders. Ultimately, they can help strengthen our collective efforts to prevent and combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. I thank you.
Malta and give the floor now to Mr. Asger Standal, Senior Advisor of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to the Permanent Missions of Finland and Turkmenistan and as well as CTED for organizing today's event. We welcome this as a timely opportunity to exchange best practices and discuss insights and practical lessons learned. As for the terms, I refer to radicalization as the process by which a person increasingly accepts the use of violence to achieve political, ideological, or religious goals, whereas extremism conducive to terrorism refers to the acceptance and use of violence for such purposes, essentially violent extremism. Generally, extremists have low public support in Norway, in the Norwegian society. Studies show that Norwegians generally trust the government, the security services, and the police. Openness and transparency in government is important to maintain this level of public trust, which is perhaps our most important measure in countering polarization and disinformation. That being said, Norway has, like many countries of the world, experienced terrorism on several occasions. In the years that followed the different attacks, effective prevention of extremism conducive to terrorism, as well as responses, have been a priority for various governments. They have included a number of different papers, an independent review of national preparedness, an action plan against radicalization and violent extremism. We have a Center for Research on Right-Wing Extremism. We had an independent extremism commission followed by a white paper. We have a national security strategy that emphasizes preventive work. So there's a whole range of different documents. The National Whole of Government Counter-Terrorism Strategy and a comprehensive action plan against radicalization and violent extremism have for years formed our longer-term approach to prevent and combat terrorism and violent extremism. These documents will be revised in the near future, so that will come up at a later stage. We see a complex threat landscape also in Norway. Ideology and a fascination with violence are increasingly blending together, making it harder to identify what triggers individuals to accept violence. Understanding the role of online platforms and emerging technologies, both as drivers of extremism and as essential tools for prevention, is key. It's also key to strike a balance between individual rights and the society's need for safety. But we will continue our whole-of-society approach. Furthermore, we find that trust, transparency, and open conversations on difficult issues are important. Clear communications on threats, demonstrated by the unclassified threat assessment, which our services have produced for the last 20 years, play a vital part in our work to continue ensuring openness and transparency. We also do open and closed parliamentary hearings, which is also contributing to this trust and transparency. And of course, international cooperation is a vital part of our work, and we highly appreciate sharing